Dear everyone, greetings from Asian Productivity Organization. Hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during this pandemic. This is live from the APO Secretariat Office in Tokyo, Japan, and we welcome all our viewers from APO member countries and beyond. I am Asaitambi Monikam, and thanks to our viewers for joining us on this APO Productivity Talk series. And today we will discuss about data-driven agriculture productivity. First, we need to ask if our current system of agriculture is sustainable one or not. Because food security is a big concern by 2050 due to rapid increase of global population. And according to UN FAO, the food demand would increase more than 50%, and almost 1 billion people are expected not to get the food what they want. On top of that, climate change is a big concern, and it became a fringe issue to the global top priority, which would impact the agriculture productivity a lot. So, what could be the solution to meet the increasing demand of food and ensure food security for our next generation? To answer these questions and discuss further in detail, dear viewers, I am very much delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Deepak Pareek, CEO of Agribusiness from India. How are you today, Mr. Deepak?
All good. Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Before we get into further detailed discussion on the topic, let me share a video clip from Microsoft Research on how precision agriculture makes farms more efficient and reduce climate change. Have a look.
The world has a food problem, but it is not just about growing food. We need to grow good food, nutritious food, and we need to grow that food without harming the planet. Agriculture is both a contributor to climate change, it will be affected by climate change, and it could also be a solution to climate change. One of the most promising ways to address that problem is that of data-driven agriculture. That is, if you could capture data from the farm, from different parts of the farm, and then use artificial intelligence on top of that data to add value, to be able to predict things that you otherwise cannot sense, cannot measure, you can then use that to improve efficiencies in agriculture.
My name's Andrew Nelson. I'm a fifth-generation farmer in Eastern Washington. We farm about 8,000 acres. We live here with my family. I have 2 little boys, and my wife works in a town nearby. I'm also an active software engineer, so I like to combine my passions of software and agriculture. So I do a lot of precision ag on our farm. This year we had the second driest year on record. Last year we had one of the wettest years on record. So we're continually facing different challenges on our farm. And that's where I like to utilize technology to help me overcome those challenges as best as I can.
As we researchers in Microsoft Research build new technology, we give it to Andrew to try it out in his farm. Andrew tries it out, adds his agricultural knowledge to see how that could make this technology even more powerful.
So one of the biggest challenges with deploying IoT systems in remote locations is the lack of connectivity. So even if you go out and deploy sensors in a farm field, you need a way to get all that data to the cloud. We're able to bridge that gap by using TV white spaces. TV white spaces are unused TV spectrum, and they're really great when it comes to the agriculture scenario because they can travel very long distances. So what we've done as part of the FarmBeats project is create this end-to-end IoT system that actually uses TV white spaces to both enable connectivity and also send sensor data to the cloud.
In order to enable precision agriculture, a farmer needs to know what the farm looks like. Not just what's above the soil, also what's below the soil. One way to create that view is if you can bring data from sensors, if you can bring data from satellite imagery, from drone imagery, using artificial intelligence and computer vision techniques, you can merge all of these different data streams to create views of the farm that you otherwise just couldn't get.
With one drone flight, we can generate 15 to 20 gigabytes worth of data. And we're able to see the data that comes back immediately. I'm starting to have self-reinforcing loops. I can take a drone flight, it'll inform my spray decision, which I can then see results from my weather station in the field. And I can manage my field in a much more granular approach. I'm going from managing things field by field to managing it acre by acre or even in smaller increments. It's saving a lot in time, it's saving a lot in cost, and I think it's helping us control any issues we have on our farm to a better degree.
These use cases can be applicable across multiple industries. For example, the oil and gas industry, some of the TV white space solutions could help solve their problem. The supply chain industry and the wind and solar energy producers would love to know, what the solar predictions or the wind predictions would be, where some of the microclimate predictions could sort of help them solve that problem.
These are all fundamental computer science challenges where we as computer scientists need to work together with the other scientists in the space. So technology can help with climate adaptation, and technology can also help with agriculture becoming a solution to this problem. We are confident using some of the technologies that we are building that we will be able to overcome this challenge.
As you have seen in this video, one of the promising ways to address the problem, including the climate change, is data-driven agriculture. The digital technologies like IoT and artificial intelligence are coming into wider view and spread sustainable farming. So, in today's talk, Mr. Deepak will address the necessity of producing more food per farmer, per dollar of input cost, and per acre to meet increasing demand and ensure food security through data-driven agriculture. Mr. Deepak will be explaining data-driven agriculture in a virtual physical form, crop management cycle, and how agriculture 4.0 technologies such as the Internet of Things, blockchains, AI and machine learning, and cloud computing are expected to introduce more automation and make agriculture smarter and more productive. Before I invite Mr. Deepak to start his presentation, we would like to encourage our viewers to send your questions and comments in the chat box with your name and country, and we would respond to your questions during Q&A session. Deepak, now the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks a lot for inviting me to Asian Productivity Organization's this P-Talk. Agriculture has been something which has been very close to my heart while I've been practicing technology for now more than 2 decades. Having done work across 34 different countries across the globe, agriculture happened to me 6 years back when I wanted to solve the biggest challenge human beings face today is to get food on our tables. In this presentation, we'll be talking about what are the key challenges in agriculture and how technology can solve some of these challenges. But we all need to also understand that technology is not the answer to all of our questions. We also need to change the way we consume food, change the way we produce food, as well as at the level of the policy. The changes are required. The current way of doing farming and the complete food chain is not sustainable. We are already seeing those challenges, and that was also discussed at the COP in Glasgow, where agriculture was one of the fundamental areas which needed some changes so that we can adhere to future where we have zero emission. Technology will definitely is going to be playing very vital role, and that is what has been our experience on field, because I am also a farmer. So some of the technology which my dear friend Ranveer Chandra from Microsoft, a pioneer in EdTech, was speaking about in previous video. Very similar technologies we have tried to implement in Southeast Asia and Africa. I had opportunity of working across multiple countries in South Asia. We have impacted farmers in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Philippines, in Thailand, and definitely back home India. So what I'll be talking about will be very relevant with the context of Southeast Asia. My talk is not going to be covering those aspects which are not possible in developing world. While a lot of technologies which we'll talk about today has been developed in the developed world, but can very easily be scaled up in developing economies of Southeast Asia. So now let us understand what is the elephant in the room. Elephant in the room is our food security. Just before pandemic hit us, there were close to 800 million people who are not having food security. And food security doesn't just mean that putting food on your table. It means putting healthy food on your table, which will give you sufficient nutrition to live a healthy life. Pandemic has further worsened the situation. Today we are having close to 1 billion people who go to bed without food. When we see currently 7.8 billion people inhabit this beautiful planet, this 1 billion number tells a lot about what we have done with our food ecosystem. That is also one of the biggest challenges which needs to be solved. Food and agriculture, which is a huge $8 trillion economy. You'll be surprised if you go by various reports. The negative impact of food and agriculture sector is close to 5.4 trillion US dollars. This tells us one thing for sure. We need to change. We need to be more productive. We need to be more sustainable when it comes to agriculture and food ecosystem. Now going forward, we would be adding close to 1.9 billion more people by 2050. We'll need 60% more food for a very simple reason. As we enhance our incomes, the demand for food is going to increase substantially because a lot of people are moving towards secondary food. We need more proteins. We need more fat. We need more nutrients. And as the low income economies pick up, there is a possibility that they can afford this high nutrition food. We are already seeing the impact of climate change. 8 to 10% of agriculture productivity is being compromised because of climate change. Unfortunately, those at the base of the pyramid, the farmers, they are impacted the most by vagaries of climate change. The beautiful coffee you drink every day, which comes from Ethiopia, the Arabica, just a decade back, in the harvest season, farmers were harvesting 4 times a week the coffee beans. Today they do alternative days. We are already seeing the productivity and yields going down in rice producing countries because of impact of climate change. Whether we talk about Indonesia, India, or Thailand, we are seeing substantial reduction in productivity of rice. And same is with other crop as well. Now, given this two key data point that we need 60% more food by 2050 and already 8 to 10% of productivity in our agriculture system is being compromised because of climate change, we will need to cultivate twice the land we have today to feed everyone on this planet. This tells us one thing very clearly, that the current agriculture practices and ecosystem is not sustainable. Now let us understand a little bit more that why the food systems need a fundamental transformation. While on one hand, we were talking about 1 billion people being food secured, you'll find that 2 billion people in this world, they are suffering from micronutritional challenges. lot of nutrients which our body requires is not part of the food they're eating. At the same time, we are having 2 billion people who are obese. So shift is just not in the productivity system, is also required in the consumption system also. Majority of people who are involved in agriculture, close to 800 million of them, they live below the poverty line. We are not able to adequately sustain financially our farmers. The small and marginal farmers in majority of developing world, they are facing existential crisis. Their average age is increasing. Many of them, they are migrating out of agriculture to other low pay activities. But it doesn't stop there. The 30% of global greenhouse gases is because of agricultural activities. It is second just to your energy. While we talk a lot about energy, from clean energy sources to battery driven cars, but when it comes to discussion on agriculture, it is always pushed below the carpet. But for understanding of the audience, I would again like to stress the point that 30% of global greenhouse gases is outcome of agriculture activity. Another big challenge when it comes to sustainability of this planet and impact of our food and agriculture system on the same is that 70% of freshwater withdrawals across the globe happens in agriculture or because of agriculture. This is another grave challenge when you are seeing the scarcity and rationing of water from cities of Africa like Johannesburg to cities in India like Chennai or Delhi, and even in Australia. The threat of we running out of water is real. And if there is one human activity which needs to mend its way to ensure that doesn't happen, is agriculture. Close to 500 million small and marginal farming families produce 80% of food we eat. They are the unsung heroes. But unfortunately, for past few decades, whatever innovation in agriculture we have been able to achieve, it is focused on large corporate contract farmers. Not too much has been done for these small and marginal farmers, majority of whom happens to be in Southern Hemisphere, in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and a substantial number of them being in Southeast Asia, which we all of us call a home. Things need to change, and let's understand what are the challenges at the grassroots. Having opportunity of working on farms across Southeast Asia, I've been able to understand and identify 4 key challenges. Close to 1.8 billion people are directly or indirectly involved with agriculture and rural economy across the globe. And there are 4 very visible common challenges which connect all of them. While we talk about a lot of data nowadays, well, access availability of data is there, but at the grassroots level to the farmer, he needs insight, not just data. I cannot give him 200 data points and tell him to make a decision. He is more confused today than ever, because a lot of information, a lot of data has been presented to him, but majority of that is non-actionable insights. We have also seen over past few decades substantial increase in cost of cultivation. And as I told you, majority of these farmers, they are at the base of the pyramid. They are the poorest one. Increase in cost of cultivation is leading to a lot of distress among the farming communities. Third key challenge which small marginal farmers face is lack of access to risk mitigation and financial tools. Agriculture depends heavily on weather, government policies, global trade. 1 year a farmer gets good value in India for their potatoes, and next year, because of vagaries of either nature or price or policy, he doesn't get the right price. We need to find better risk mitigation tools for our farmers. Connected to risk mitigation tool is financing. Now, as I explained to you, agriculture is a risky area, and majority of investors and organized financial institutions, they would like to lend in those sectors which are low risk, and agriculture is one of the highest riskiest sectors. A right financing or credit availability for the farmer at the right time can easily increase their yields by 8 to 10%. But unfortunately, that's not happening. And finally, if these three things are still taken care of, the last thing is low realization from their sales. All of us hate inflation. Food inflation is by policy made to keep low across the globe. That means whenever we say that let's subsidize farmers, actually we are not subsidizing farmers, they are subsidizing us by selling their produce at lower price than what they should be getting. So these are the 4 key challenges which needs to be solved immediately if we want our farmers not to be stressed, and hence they adopt right sorts of practices and technologies. Now, what is the solution? So typically, again, based on my experience, we have found that the future agri-food system, which is sustainable both financially for farmers and environmentally for rest of the society, which can ensure food security, have 10 key tenets to it. First, it has to be data-driven. Second, it should be insightful. So that data need to be shared with farmers in a way where it provides insights, or the ecosystem players, again, insights. It should be scalable. We cannot have small piecemeal solutions which work in a very specific type of scenario and cannot be scaled. It needs to be holistic. We cannot just solve one problem in isolation. For example, just reduce the cost or just increase the price realized by the farmers. We need to come out with a agri-food system which is holistic and solve multiple aspects of agriculture ecosystem or challenges faced by it. It needs to be distributed. Now, that is also very important because too much centralization, whether it is to the corporation, to the government, is not helping agriculture ecosystem at all. The system needs to be self-learning so that it can adapt to changes which we are seeing every passing day. The seventh, which is very important factor, is it needs to be transparent. We definitely live in a world where the farmer who puts close to 80% of economical effort by value addition just gets 15% of economical value. That is because the trade is not fair and not transparent. Going forward, it needs to be transparent. Another big challenge we have faced in agriculture is that the decisions are taken on old historical facts The world has evolved. Today, as we have seen in the previous video, through IoT, through sensors, through satellite, through drones, we can have real-time information. So sustainable agri-food system would be real-time. We need a system where people collaborate. Agriculture is having a lot of varied interest, but different groups. Farmer has a different interest, governments have a different interest, consumer have a different interest, and intermediaries have a different interest. And everybody is trying to pull away rather than push towards a common goal. Going forward, we need to work as platforms of collaboration. All these different stakeholders need to come together to create this beautiful sustainable agri-food system. And last but not least, it has to be profitable to all those involved, and especially the farmers. Just to give you a little bit of understanding, modern agriculture is aggregation of complex activities. On the input side, from fertilizers, pesticides, seeds, that itself is a huge, big economy itself. There are hundreds of activities and processes involved there. Until unless we have understanding or visibility in those activities, at the farm gate level, we would not be able to do justice. Then there is whole process which happens on the farm, from identifying the right crop to application of right inputs, good agriculture practices, to harvest, and then from there onward, from farm gate to your fork. That itself is a very complex value chain. Multiple level of aggregators, food processors. The list goes on. Food which reaches your table has gone through a lot. No other sector is so complex as agriculture. Now, if we see in today's modern agriculture ecosystem, we have a vision of pulling in farmer again to the center. For a very simple reason, today we need to grow more with less of land, less of water, less of cost, which predominantly goes in the input. And only one person can achieve that miracle. That's farmer. And it's time to bring him to the center. Various technology, whether it is in digital front, for example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, IoT, cloud computing, remote sensing through satellites and drones. And on biotech side, typically agronomy. All need to contribute to enable our farmers to achieve miracle for all of us. Unlike in past where there were only few players in the agriculture ecosystem, today from agtech startups to neo agribusinesses procuring at the grassroots level the commodities from the farmer, to bank and financial institution, to agri-specific cryptocurrencies, governments, multilateral agencies and NGOs, input companies, all are reinventing themselves every passing minute to be more relevant in the current changing dynamics of agriculture ecosystem. Our goalposts have shifted, and hence all the organizations also need to change the way they approach the agriculture ecosystem. We always believe only few would be impacted, but that's another area which I strongly disagree. Anyone and everyone connected with agriculture is going to get impacted, both by what is being happening in agriculture because of climate change, food security challenges. We are already seeing a lot of geopolitics happening around it. We are already seeing a lot of innovation happening in digital technology fronts, which we'll be talking a little bit in depth. At the same time, also in BioWare, as well as the whole concept of agronomy itself, from large commercial farms, we have started talking about regenerative agriculture. The circle is complete, and everybody, whether it is ancillary service providers, whether it is food companies which are getting processed, semi-processed, or raw food on your tables, to all those who are helping agriculture by providing inputs in form of agrochemicals, services, technologies, mechanization, everybody would get impacted. Yes, the level of this impact would be different for different players based on their exposure. Now let's come to digital ag. Data-driven agriculture is only possible if we are able to digitize agriculture first. In my view, there are 4 technology megatrends which are already impacting and would be impacting the future of food and agriculture sector. We have already heard about what IoT can do through the beautiful video. IoT is as old as the technology itself. If we are able to put sensors and communication tools together, that's become IoT. So soil sensors, weather sensors, plant sensors, when they get the last mile access through whether it is 5G, which I believe would be impacting agriculture substantially, or white space technology, which was talked in the video, have enabled use of IoT devices at the grassroots level in the farming. Now, IoT, remote sensing, all of them, they create humongous amount of data. When you are dealing with petabytes of data, not megabytes, which we used to do just half a decade back, it is big data. We'll delve into big data a little bit more going forward. Now, whether it is IoT or whether it is data from other sources creating the big data stack, the trust is very important. The modern development in a technology called blockchain, which I'm pretty sure all of you would be aware, because the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin, is the toast of the town today. However, blockchain is not Bitcoin only. Blockchain is the heart, the technology infrastructure, which enable Bitcoin to be what it is today, a peer-to-peer currency of internet or currency of people. Same level of disintimidation can happen when it comes to agriculture through blockchain. We'll also be talking about some use cases for blockchain. And the last, not the least, with all this data, whether it is outcome of the IoTs or transitional reporting through blockchain or remote sensing data through big data analytical tools, all of them would not be of much use if we are able to analyze it at the speed of light. And that is where artificial intelligence and machine learning plays a very important role. They are able to process all this data in a way that it is able to create autonomous systems, autonomous processes, actionable insight for those in the agriculture value chains,
Mute.
including the farmer.
Mr. Deepak, sorry for the interruption. Maybe for the interest of time, maybe you could speed up a little
Sure.
bit.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
So as I was talking about, like, the data deluge is already there, which is happening in smart agriculture, from remote sensing to integrated farming tool to precision agriculture, IoT, and genetics as well. We are already creating huge amount of data. And when people say data is oil, right, which is a parlance, I believe data is not oil but new soil. Oil you consume once. Data you can use it multiple times and ensure different people get different value. A lot of different type of data can be collected, from farmer demographics to crop cycles to the farm profile, farming activity, financial transaction, consumption and usage. All of that can play a vital role. There are 5 very critical V's when it comes to agriculture data: the volume, the variety, the veracity, because you don't want unvalidated data to be used to decide what needs to be grown; velocity, because humongous amount of data is being created and captured in agriculture ecosystem today; and then the value. These are some of the data-driven decision-making tools. We can use public data, which is on the left-hand side, to the proprietary data and sensors. And already there exists a lot of models, evaluators, and algorithms which can process from weather to the crop models to sensor to the remote sensing data and give actionable insight for all. The data-driven decision making has evolved from hindsight to foresight today. From descriptive analytics, that what happened, today we are at the level where we are able to do the prescriptive analytics, where we predict things and we are able to tell farmer or the ecosystem players what they need to do so that they'll be able to get the desired results. Now, different level of intelligence are there, which is being used in agriculture, from plain old vanilla artificial intelligence, where we make machine to have cognitive capabilities, to the deep learning models, where we use multiple layers of neural network to be able to define something which can be implemented on ground very fast. For example, identification of right variety suitable exactly to your farm, or creating a seed which will do wonders in farm very specific to you or a farmer. Now, talking about blockchain in food, we are already seeing emergence in 4 use cases. Food security, the traceability is helping a lot. It tells you where the food was grown, when it was harvested, what all logistical processes it has gone through. That gives you confidence that food which we are eating is safe and secure. Removing counterfeits is very important area when it comes to agriculture inputs, because farmers are being sold a lot of counterfeits and wrong products, which ultimately ends up in our tables because they are being used in farming. I was talking about challenge of risk mitigation. Parametric insurance on blockchain has ensured the cost of delivery of risk mitigation tool like insurance to the farmer, hence securing them a brighter future. And last but not least, because these farmers are collecting a lot of data, or are having a lot of data, or creating a lot of data, different organizations can use it, and the data can also be monetized. Now, these are some of the agriculture use case, from crop farm monitoring to pest and soil defect detections, farm automation, predictive analytics, and recommendation engine. Companies like ITK, Cropin, which are using AI and ML to mitigate risk for the farmer, or Zavio, which is able to tell you which pest is there. One Soil tells you, like, how good your soil is to grow a specific type of product. Phytech or Blue River or Aviar, they are able to sense and tell you, for example, Blue River helps you remove weeds without using chemical. Phytech gives you what your plant is feeling, the stress level of the farm. And Aerofarms is something which is using the modern controlled farming to ensure that food is grown very close to your urban locations where it is consumed. Now, let's talk a little bit of impact. So this is what we have been able to achieve. Like, I was part of this, where, like, we use all sort of technologies in location called Sabarkantha in Gujarat. We have worked with a lot of farmers, but I'm just giving this as one of the case, which we called it smart potato and groundnuts. So potato and groundnuts for the community. commodities. And actually, there was substantial increase in productivity in the first season itself, increase in the profitability of the farmers, and reduction of cost of cultivation. And in next 5 years, we look forward that there would be increase in productivity by 51%, increase in profitability by 108% for the farmers, and reduction in cost of cultivation by as much as 58%. Now, if you see overall opportunity of digital agriculture or EdTech, right, from $8 trillion food economy, we are looking at EdTech to be close to 250 billion US dollars, and the digital agriculture itself would be a business of 13 billion US dollars. This I'm talking about current financial years. And if you see that, different regions, different activities happening. So our region is one of, I'll say that close to the town. We are doing pretty well. While South Asia is not doing that great, but Southeast Asia, there has been a lot of adoption. But if you can see that the growth has been pretty sizable across the world. And by 2026, we are seeing common CAGR of close to 15%, and total digital agriculture market to be of 26.65 billion US dollars. So this is an industry, this is an area to be in case you are looking as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a stakeholder. And with that, I would like to end my presentation by saying that if you do not do nothing today, technology megatrends will disrupt your market anyway tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful and detailed presentation, Mr. Deepak, which was very informative, actually. Actually, it was an eye-opening session to learn the impact of data-driven agriculture case studies that you have shown that in your farm or the farmers network in Gujarat, the productivity had increased from 18 to 51%, and profitability is almost from 34 to 108%. On top of that, the reduced cost of cultivation also. Hope this success could be replicable in all major crops across the different countries as well. And you also have pointed out that global digital agriculture market is poised to grow from 13 billion to 26 billion by 2026, which is very encouraging positive trend, and hope it will have a bigger impact on increasing the productivity on ground level across all crops and regions to solve the food demand. That's what we are facing as because of the demand for food. We have to ensure the food security is going to address. Definitely, it should have it should address that problem, particularly to have a sustainable farming in future. So thanks again for sharing your thoughts with us. And now we open the floor for questions. Let me start with my first questions. First of all, when we talk about any new technologies, in fact, the scale up is very, very important. So how difficult it is for scaling up, especially the digitization of agriculture? That being said, that the first step is data-driven agriculture. How do you think that?
So very interesting and very important question. Scalability is what in the past, unfortunately, was not the central area when the digital agriculture started emerging globally. But going forward in past 3 to 4 years, we have seen that all those solutions which are being put on the market, all those technocrats, innovators, they started seeing scalability also as one of the very key important point to cater to. Reducing the cost of digitization is one area which you'll find companies, for example, Cropin, which is doing on the farm side, or IntelliLab, which is trying to do the quality assaying at the grassroots level, at the marketplace, or even very closer to the farms, or companies like Stature, which are using remote sensing technologies to be able to direct or guide about the risk mitigation of the insurance companies, and then how they are able to deliver valuable product or risk mitigation product to those at the grassroots level, the farmers. All of that has made that everybody needs that data. And if we are able to create that collaborative environment where many of these companies, they are working together. For example, very recently we heard that news that Bayer and Microsoft, they have partnered, right, for digitization and using internet to deliver more value to their farmers. So those collaboration will make scale up faster. Secondly, as I said, that technology cost reduction will also enable more and more farmers to be covered in the digitalization activity. And last but not least, I would give example back home from India, where the government is very keen to digitize farming information, and they came out with a concept called AgriStack, where the government is itself digitizing information related to the farmers, what they are growing, when they are growing, the marketplaces, and making available that data to different stakeholders, the tech companies, the market linkages company, to use it free of cost on top of it to deliver value to the farmers. So I'm seeing that the business model innovation, technology innovation has made scaling far easier today than what was in past. But still, that challenge is not totally solved, and we have to walk far more miles going forward to ensure that every farmer on this earth is digitized and is getting value out of the whole data-driven agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak. Yeah, I completely agree with your point. Definitely, the scalability is very important, and you pointed out that Bayer and Microsoft is collaborating. Likewise, I believe a lot of agro companies are collaborating with software companies to provide like a scaling. And also, I believe that in one of my previous talk session, I discussed this point. See, even though we have a kind of technologies in place, scaling up. Most of our farmers are very small scale farmers. So affordability is the main issue when you have a technologies, but affordability is the main issue. So to solve that, I believe we need to have a kind of a community or cooperative system so that a farmer no need to invest on the technology itself. It's just kind of service they can receive. Any like common platform, the organizations could be a service provider so that they don't need to invest money on the technology itself. So how do you think, especially if you've been traveling a lot, especially in India, now you are saying that India is really catching up with the digitization of agriculture. How do you see this at a ground level? How farmers are really adoptable, for, especially small scale farmers, I mean?
Yeah, so I will pull in my experience in Indonesia, Vietnam, as well as in India, because I've seen that in all the three, actually, like at some level, this collaborative community effort, which could be called in concept of community farming or farmers collective, is already happening. And it was happening not predominantly to digitize the farmer, but to ensure that there is a better value proposition when farmers are trying to sell their produce. But that as itself can be extended to even digitization. For example, like, we at Indigram, we have created close to 250 farmers collective in all part of India, right? From very difficult parts of Jammu and Kashmir to Kanyakumari, which is southern part of India, in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Meghalaya, which is northeast, very close to like, Southeast Asia. And we have seen based on our experience, one thing, that if you are able to create right models, farmers adopt it. Farmers are not averse of giving money or paying for digital services, provided they are able to see that value. They don't want to make upfront investment, but they are very okay in case you want to charge them based on the usage of the service. For example, like, when you create a digital marketplace, or in India when it is called digital mandi, farmers are okay to give the transactional cost, but they don't want you to charge them to download an application and pay for that application. So I believe that technocrats who have been listening to what I've been saying here, please try to create that value for those farmers. Even the small and marginal farmers, they would love to typically pay for the services, provided that you are able to create a very well-defined value proposition to them and able to demonstrate that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I completely agree on your point. Definitely, we need to create a value before the farmers. Definitely, whatever you're saying, like downloading should not cost for them. After seeing the value, definitely, it's a kind of mouth to mouth. Once the progress farmers adopted means, definitely many farmers will keep following on. That is a kind of community what we see from India, I believe. So coming to my next
And
question.
let me just add a small thing here. Like,
Yeah,
for
please go
example,
ahead.
WhatsApp and Facebook for sharing agriculture information and putting their problems and getting solution is happening in remote places as far as Papua New Guinea. I've seen that happening, right? So if there is a value, right, farmers adopt the technology for sure.
Thank you. Thanks for adding that additional point. Coming back to again agriculture, because of climate adoption, global warming, especially agriculture industry is facing a lot of uncertainties. Now it's everywhere. Sometimes it's completely flooding everywhere. Otherwise, it's a continuous dryness. So we see a lot of uncertainties because it's going to affect agriculture particularly. How do you see this impacting the adoption?
Okay. See, I believe the climate change is just like pandemic, right? Would be galvanizing or would act as a catalyst of adoption of new technologies in agriculture. Now, when the world understand that that 30% of greenhouse gases is because of agriculture and we want to go to zero emission, right? So more and more funds would be available at the disposal for adoption of these technology. Previously, there was everybody was fence sitter, right? Why I as a government or why I as a donor or why I as a say multinational company, right, should be focusing on helping farmer to adopt a technology, right? But now when we see that actually if climate change happens, it is just not going to impact a poor man, it is going to impact everyone. So there is more, I'll say that urgency in putting the funding and investment around agriculture and adoption of technology in agriculture. So that's one part of it. Second part of it is that even on the farmer side, because of what we are seeing around it, as you rightly mentioned, that there are a shorter spell of very heavy rain and longer spell of dryness, unlike previously when there was a stable rainfall, specifically in some periods. For example, around 7 to 8 months in Indonesia or 3.5 months of monsoon in India, but that has changed substantially. So farmers are also now very open to listen to new idea, new concept, and adopt that. And the WhatsApp, which I told you, is one example of that. That when they are not able to move out because of lockdown, they wanted to sell their produce and they adopted technology previously they were not very keen to adopt. So you will see that both on the supply side through the right investments by overall, I'll say that the global philanthropy ecosystem, governments as well as private sector, and on the adoption side, the farmer themselves keen to adoption of new technology. So that has created a perfect storm which will help all of us as humanity.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. My next question actually connecting with this adoption. So when you say adoption of technology, definitely it has a cost. So if you take the base of the pyramid, basically the lower end, like small scale farmers or marginal scale farmers, so it's really, really challenging for them to adopting the kind of technologies. The moment when you show the new technologies, then from your perspective, how do you see the kind of a cost for adopting this kind of technology?
Right.
How
So
costly
if
it
you
is
see,
exactly? Yeah.
yeah. So typically, if we are talking about mid-sized projects of touching hundreds and thousands of farmers, on average, digitization cost in Southeast Asia is around from $10 to $16 per annum per farmer, right? Now, only thing is that the adoption is only possible that until and unless you are somebody invest into that. And as I mentioned, the those who are working in agriculture ecosystem, uh, whether it is on the supply side or on the demand side, they are already started investing for very simple reason. 30% of the food goes waste. If those in the value chain are able to save that 30%, that's a profit, right? So people have started realizing that actually technology is just not for the farmers, but it is also for the ecosystem itself. It is also very important for the economy itself. So that's why the government getting into that. It is also important to keep your food inflation low. Otherwise, to get the right price points, farmer will charge stop farming or will charge you very high price, and that would also that destabilize economies. So we are already seeing that there is a multi-pronged effort to ensure that farmer adopt technology. I'll also give you one very small example. Again, if you see that the poorest farmer happens to be in Southeast Asia and including India, but the number of tractors being sold, right, is highest in the world. So we are already seeing that in previous adoption of mechanization, right? It has been successful even in low income countries for very simple reason, the value proposition. And that is again, I believe that we'll have to do the same, but with far more urgency.
Thank you. The value proposition is really, really crucial. I agree on that. And now I see a question from Mr. Dinesh Kar. His question is follows. How do you think data driven agriculture as part of agriculture education for new generations. So his point is most of our agri experts are with the less digital knowledge and vice versa. What is your comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So, we have seen one thing, in developing countries or Southeast Asia, uh, the agriculture education is more focused on just providing extension service, right? So, all the, like I said, that academic activities are around, agronomy, are around the value chains, is around getting them a job for selling inputs or buying output or production. Unfortunately, going forward, that needs to change. And I believe agro-informatics is a very important area which need to be taught in those universities, because millions of agriculture graduates are created in countries like India, Indonesia, Vietnam, putting all together. And there I believe that there need to be a curriculum change where we also incorporate digital agriculture and bioagriculture also part of their study. Now we can take the examples from whether it is Delft University, Venetian University, University of California, Davis, right? They have the right pedagogy available. Only thing is that the collaborations need to be created so that there is sharing of information, there is collaboration, so that the real problem statements from developing world can be shared with these Ivy League universities in developed world, and their technologies can be deployed in developing countries. So I believe we need to have more cooperation between I'll say two worlds, and then only we'll be able to enhance or improve the quality of agriculture education, which is more relevant in present times.
Thank you. Yeah, the information sharing from developed countries to developing countries is very important, and moreover, the collaboration opportunities. Definitely, we should consider that as an option. So, connecting with that question, so when you're saying that information, so how this information asymmetry is negatively impacting the agriculture?
See, information asymmetry impacts negatively any ecosystem because it gives too much power to one people who have the information and deprives the any power to those who don't have that information. And that is also in the case of agriculture. A beautiful coffee which you might be going and drinking, right, whether it's in Jakarta or in Tokyo, right, and might be paying $4 to $5, right. If you see the cost of milk and cost of sugar and cost of coffee going into that, and how much farmer is paid for that, you'll be surprised to know that actually, if you're spending $100, it's only $1.5 reaches the farmer, and that is because of information asymmetry. Farmer doesn't know actually at what price you are drinking that beautiful coffee, right? So he's always looking at what my buyer is ready to pay me. At the same side, the input prices as well, right? There is intention of value creation or profit maximization by input companies, and they're right to do that because they are for-profit businesses, right? But farmer doesn't have access to a lot of information where what alternatives are possible, right? This is the same debate which we had for generic and formulation drugs, right? Where if you have generic drugs which cost 1 by 100, right? Why you go for formulation drug? And that is what happening in developing countries, right? We depend a lot on generic drugs because of the low cost. This level of information, because farmer is not having, it is putting them on a huge disadvantage. And if any industry which is suffering far more from information asymmetry is agriculture.
Thank you. I second on that your opinion. Now, my next question comes to the climate change. Last 10 days, especially, we were talking with the globally all leaders. They were talking about COP26 climate change declarations, and it is declared that at least 1.5% the temperature limit should be managed. So with that sense, what they declared again, also you have to infuse huge finance to tackle that. In connecting with that, how does our data-driven agriculture is going to impact the climate change? I'm trying to connect how the data-driven agriculture and also the climate change, how it's going to be. What is your thought process on that?
Yeah, sure. See, in fact, when we talk about the first biggest polluter, which is energy sector, it is still possible for us to reduce it because it is not a necessity, right? You flying to India is not a necessity. We can still do the Zoom call, right? But you eating food is a necessity. So I'm saying that on the first part, definitely, while there is a lot of talk, a lot of discussion, I see that the relevance of that is based on typically the economics, right? economics of fossil fuels, economics of typically like clean tech. However, agriculture is a necessity, right? So if you don't stop agriculture, produce 30% of global greenhouse gases, right? You won't be able to achieve that 1.5 degree, also that barrier which the world want to put to also that stop or reverse the climate change. And that is only possible if you sufficiently invest in agriculture. And invest in agriculture just not in a per se of like where you want to invest for just increasing the productivity, but also making it more sustainable, making it more efficient. How do we ensure that every drop of water, right, is used in a judicious manner? We are having flood farming, flood irrigation in rice, in sugarcane, right, happening in Southeast Asia, and that product is exported to Europe and US. Actually, we are exporting 5,000 liters of water when we are exporting rice, or 8,000 liters if we are exporting sugar to Europe. And at what price it is exported? So all these things need to be taken care of, thought about, and the only way to address this issue is to know the challenges, and that is only going to come when you are having right data sets for that. And then based on that, you can do simulation and come out with the right solution. Regenerative agriculture is great, but how much impact it is going to make, right? That can be only possible if you are able to run models and algorithms to come out with its impact. So it's high time that actually there has to be a huge investment in case anybody is serious about solving the climate crisis. Another area is also like climate resilient agriculture. Right? The climate, even if I say that if you are not able to achieve 1.5 degrees centigrade of cap, what is going to happen? We'll be having more typhoons, we'll be having far more adverse weather, and in those weather, the biggest answer that victim would be the farming, that is agriculture. So you won't have sufficient food to grow, and this is where like growing the crops, for example, millets, growing the crop, focusing more on vegetables and fruits, moving away from rice, wheat, sugar. All these things need to be done, and for that, actually, like we need to develop a climate resilient agriculture frameworks, which is also very important.
Definitely agree with your point that we should move on climate resilient crops like technologies, definitely, because we can't just depend on the with the current system of a cropping pattern. Definitely we need to, because if you take in India itself, it's like a 40 million acres. I think 40 million hectares, I believe. So we have to have the changing pattern so that farmers should not keep depending on only the water irrigation. So definitely they should go for the different crop rotation basis. And definitely what you said is a crop resilient crop modeling we should go for. And with that, I have one more question. Definitely we have a different business models in adopting the digital technologies. So could you please explain what are the different models are in place right now in the market?
Yeah, so typically, like, one straightforward example is where actually, like, you create a technology and the user pays for it, right? It could be the input companies, output companies, it could be the large farmers, right, who pay for a technology. For example, like, if you're looking for field management or field support tools, right, where like large farmers pay for it per acre and companies deploy it. It's as simple as that model. Or for example, a blockchain tool which actually is used by input company to ensure that counterfeits are not there in the market and the input companies pays for it. Or a commodity buyer put up technology to estimate yields coming out from a specific region of the farmers he is working with and pays for the technology. So that's a simple model where either B2B or B2C, but the large C, that is large farmer, B2F, happens. Second model is where actually there is a third party paying for, right, the adoption of technology. For example, the mango which you are getting in Singapore, in Japan, which is having a traceability using blockchain, you end up paying higher price for that specific product. And this is where the platform which is putting this blockchain make money on the certification part of it. So they are not charging the farmers, they are just onboarding farmers and certifying on blockchain from where the crop is coming, what is the quality when it was harvested, and the end user who is using that food produce, right, he pays for it. So that's another model. The third model is there where actually philanthropic or the public sector pays for adoption of technology. So for example, whether it's government of India, government of Indonesia, or typically GIZ and the BMGF of the world, where they put the money to ensure that let's digitize so many farmers with a very clear, well-defined outcome to be visioned, right? And this is where the deployment of technology happens, paid by the public sector or the developmental agencies, and then farmer gets the benefit out of that. So these are predominantly three broad models which I've seen.
Thank you, Deepak, for listing out those different kinds of business models. Now, in the interest of time, we almost reached our session. So, just for our viewers today, what could be your key takeaway message for our viewers today?
Three messages. One is that be very choosy in what you eat, right? See the climate footprint as well. So if you want to have a kiwi coming from New Zealand to a place like Japan or India, right? Try to get a citrus which is actually grown close to your house, right, or close to your location. We need to reduce the carbon footprint of the food which we are eating. That's one. And the right sort of demand will ensure, like, right sort of production as well. Second, I would see that those who are in the technology sector, we need far more people with right level of innovation and technology mindset to be coming to this sector and solving the problems which has been there for decades, because it is now existential problem for us. We won't survive the next generation if we don't change our agriculture today. So more innovators, more technocrats, more startups, more youngsters should come in this sector and explore how to solve the problem. And third is to those organizations who are in developed countries like Japan, for example, right? Look out for collaborations with those in the developing world and try to exchange knowledge, information, technology capabilities, and create those partnerships and collaboration, which will eventually help both sides of the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak, for those three key takeaway messages. We really appreciate it. And yes, again, thank you very much, Mr. Deepak, for your valuable insights. And I believe all our viewers found your information and insights very useful. In the interest of time, and let us end up today's session. And if our viewers have any questions, please post in a comment box. We will try to address those questions after discussing with Mr. Deepak. Yes, APO Productivity Talk will be held every Tuesday and Thursday, featuring world-leading experts. So please subscribe this APO channel and stay tuned. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Take care.